Hello viewer, continuing on with the 3D printer 3D printer parts as CNC Mill Project part 5 I believe. So today I'm going to get power to the unit and we'll actually get a little bit of electronic movement. So I have pre-wired in the two power leads, just purely because I had to take the board out to wire them in from the other side, with the whole idea of keeping the micro SD card so it's easy to access. So what I'm using for power is an old computer, and I do mean old, power supply. So this is a old ATX supply, still complete with all its dust, and it's quite a low output one for modern purposes, but on the 12 volt rail it's putting out about 8 amps, so it's well enough. And you know, you pick these things up for a dime a dozen if you haven't got any. They're a nice 12 volt supply, very useful. So I'm going to keep it simple. So all I'm doing here is taking my wire and poking it in the hole, and same with the positive. So the yellow on most of these is the 12 volts, the red is 5 volt. Now the other thing with these is to turn them on, you want to bridge this wire here with any of the ground wires. Now I actually typically use these little pliers, they're very useful for it. So I'll just join these two together like so. So very low tech, and unless you're really comfortable doing it, don't do it, because why would you? So I haven't got power going to the unit yet because I haven't turned the power switch on the power supply. So I'll plug in the board. Okay. Now the other thing I have to plug in is this. So this is the Z-axis end stop, and that's because when it powers up and it wants to set that point, and if it doesn't get the reading, it won't go into print mode. So the other thing I want to go over is the motors. So I'm using these stepper motors. So these are a Tronxy motor, so you know, just a cheapish aftermarket type of motor, and this is the normal configuration for the wiring. Now the thing with the stepper motor, if you want to reverse its operation because of the way you've mounted it or the direction you've mounted the motor, it's very easy to do. So what I've done on these is I've reversed the wiring. So the original wiring is red, skip, blue, green, skip, black. Now it's black, skip, green, blue, skip, red. And that's just because I've mounted the motors here instead of here, or there instead of there. So just something you may not have known about stepper motors, they're quite easy to move the direction. So this is the control panel. So theoretically, when I hit the power button on the power supply, it should light up, and it does. So Okay, so this is clearly in 3D printer mode, obviously, because it's a bit of a 3D printer hack, as it were. So I do have power going to the boards, so I can go into position. Now I'm not going to home, but what I'll do is I'll enter the X position, and I can use these up and down, and you can see the unit moving, and its steps, and I can come back, same thing. I'll get out of it somehow, there we go. And the same for the Y axis, is now we're coming this way towards me, and now against away from me. So we have movement. Yay! Okay. So the next thing to do is, yes, I'm just pushing buttons until it works. Okay. So now if I come up here, so now I'm going to go home X. And it will click on against the end stop and home, and now I'll go home Y. It's a bit noisy. I don't know what's causing the noise, so I might have to check that I've got everything nicely lubricated, and I'm not too sure if it's coming from here or if it's coming from the spiral. Hopefully it's not the motor, though I've got speeds, so you know, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Right, okay, so to print, I'll turn her off again and pop in the micro SD card. If I don't manage to lose it, there we go, and turn it back on. So what I've got in here is just a simple test, and it's just basically to turn the XY in kind of a circle. So what I'll do is, if I come into print mode, access it, come down to test for printing, and we'll start. Now I have to manually push that one, so that's the Z axis again. So the device expects X stop, Y stop, Z stop, and if you don't press it, it won't go. So there we go. Now the platform's moving. So if I use, say, this cable as a reference point, you can see it's sort of moving in a circle. Around the midpoint. So basically, if I had the milling machine, like the milling device set up here, then it would actually be making a circle in the machinery. So at this point, that's X and Y proof of concept, no more, but it does work. So next stage is to actually build up some framework around here and make the housing for the drill device, or the high-speed device. I don't know what I'm using yet. I haven't decided. The odds are I'm going to be using, I was going to say a Dremel device, but it'll be a cheap version of a Dremel device if I do. Because let's face it, if I'm experimenting with something, let's not break a good item, eh? We'll just break something cheap if it comes to that. So yeah, so far so good. I mean, still some fine and so still some refinement and fine work to go through. Not the least is actually putting some sort of cover over here so it doesn't get caught up on the wiring as the bed moves across. But it's working, so obviously I'm quite pleased with that. It's got a little bit of strength as well, so I'll give you an example with a Coke bottle. So even with a 2 kg sort of weight on top, it's still quite comfortable moving it around. So I'm quite pleased with the strength that's been presented by it. I'm quite sure you can, I'll be able to override it if I wanted to. But my initial things. Okay, so when I've actually been holding it, it's actually been able to move the device around rather than skipping. So it's got a fair bit of force there on these motors, so quite pleased about that. I was a little concerned they might not have the grunt to do what I wanted, but no, they seem to be fine. So the next step is I've got 2 of these, which is what I plan to use for the Z-axis up and down. Don't think I'll get away with using one, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, the board's designed for 2, so that's not a problem. I don't think I'll be using a stepper motor for the milling bit, because that will involve some external controller rather than using the board. So I may just use the, like I say, the option of a Dremel type device, high speed drill device, for model work, and we'll go from there. Now you can see that the mode's gone into, now it's an angular mode, so it's sort of just going that way and that way. So that's it. Stage 5. It's nice to have power to it, so yes, thank you for watching.